Hi everyone. Every now and then I get asked the question about what kind of software that I use to do my paintings and whatnot. So um, this is just kind of a basic hardware software rundown of my drawing setup. So anyway, what I have in terms of hardware, people ask me if I draw with the tablet. I use a Wacom 12WX. It's a 12-inch diagonal Wacom tablet. I have two pens that I use for it. One of these is a 6D stylus, and then the other one's the default pen that comes with it. And I have the whole thing set up on top of a tabletop easel. This, I've got my keyboard's mounted right here. This is it's a 3D connection 6D space navigator. So it's a 3D mouse. And then this is a Sony PlayStation 2 DualShock controller, which I have mounted in a vise. And I only use half of it. So I've got, the select and start buttons. I've got the joystick, which can be clicked in. Two pressure sensitive finger triggers up here. And pretty soon I will show you kind of, how all that stuff comes together. Over here is a touch screen. And this touchscreen monitor can be used to, it's another monitor. I use it to throw my extra reference on top. My Cintiq is what I use to draw on. Up here is just another monitor, which is for my reference for all my palettes and windows. And that netbook is what I use to capture my video. And let's see what else. And that's basically, oh, and up there is my teleprompter, which I'm using right now to monitor the video capture so that, I can make sure that everything's okay and the camera's pointing in the right direction. Meanwhile, I get to maintain a little bit of eye contact with the camera. So, that is my hardware setup. Oh, two other things that you cannot see, which are underneath the desk, are 2 foot pedals. And the foot pedals are used for more tablet input stuff, which I will explain right now. Okay, so first of all, I'm running Windows 7 64, and I'm running the program that I'm using is called TV Paint. T like Tango Victor, TV Paint Animation Pro. It's a bitmap based animation program. So normally I do illustration, but it can be used to animate. So I can draw a 1, and then I can add a frame and a 2 and a 3 and add another, and then if I just hit the space bar, it will just play through. So I've got, multiple frames of animation, and I typically work at a res of 2560 by 1600. It's a fairly high resolution that allows me to get a lot of things done. It's basically the resolution of this thing, which is a 1280 by 800 multiplied by 2 makes 2560 by 1600, so it makes for a pretty high res image. Things are, as you can see, I'm using it's a 300 pixel hard circle brush with pressure mapped to the stylus, and as you can see, it is very responsive. This is one of the main reasons I like TV Paint, is that it's a very responsive program. I have a custom perceptual palette or P palette plugin that I've made myself. I coded it in C++. It's available on the TV Paint forums and the third-party plugins and whatnot. So it's available for PC and Mac. Many thanks to the TV Paint team for helping me compile it. And okay, so as for things like, say, the game controller is used to pan with the there's the little finger triggers on it. So if I hold the trigger down lightly, it pans. If I press it down hard, then it will rotate. It will allow me to rotate the canvas. And if I press that button and I use the stylus trigger, it allows me to zoom in and out at the same time. And then, if I double click it, so I can, I can basically zoom in somewhere, and I can just double tap that button and it will recenter. If I double tap again while my pen is in range, it recenters and re-rotates and just puts everything, at 1-to-1 for me, which is kind of pretty handy. Yeah, so it's like that's what I like using this game controller for, is that the game controller allows me to handle, with one hand, to handle the undos and redos, and zooming in and zooming out, or I can zoom in and out by steps and whatnot. So now, as for the foot pedals are used to control the brush size hands-free. Again, this is a Wacom driver hack. I basically created a stubbed DLL of the Wacom tablet.dll, so I can intercept and modify any kind of Wacom data coming to and from the Wacom tablet to the software. And this allows me to do things like control the size of the brush, with my foot hands free. So, I can, normally you would only map, say, the pressure of the brush to, say, something like brush tilt or to brush pressure. But in my case, I've got a foot pedal, I've got 2 foot pedals, and the second foot pedal is used to control smoothing. So if I use a really thin brush and I just, zigzag and scribble, it's very responsive. But if I want, I can increase, and there, I can get a lot of lag, just by, stepping up on the foot pedal. And what this allows me to do is it lets me get really good precision when it comes to, getting lines to just meet or hit a particular angle, or, that's how I get a lot of my kind of my liquidy fine strokes, is because I've introduced, there's another utility called Lazy Nezumi, LAZYNEZUMI. Lazy Nezumi is another program which allows you to do a similar thing. But what I have is I've got a foot pedal that gives me analog control over how much smoothing is actually applied. Okay, so anyway, like that's, and wait, last thing about the hardware as well is the Wacom 6D stylus. Again, I've hacked the driver to make it work the way it's supposed to work, because it does not work like this out of the box, all right? But what I did is I modified it so that the pen, if I just, if I turn it, I can change the brush size, and I've got the foot pedal as well to, change the brush size, independent of the turning and tilting. So I could, I can stomp the pedal down, change my brush size out. That's the other thing. I worked out, my 2 foot pedals are MIDI-based foot pedals. One of them's an IK Multimedia stealth pedal. It allows me, analog foot pedal support, and if I stomp it, there's a stomp switch. So the stomp switch lets me, resize the brush, and now I've got a really, really big brush. But if I don't want it to be that big, I can just kind of, push on the foot pedal a little bit, and now it's smaller. And then I have, I can rotate this thing. I've corrected the rotation on it. So the brush angle here is determined by the rotation of the stylus, and also the brush size is determined by the foot pedal multiplied by, the amount of contact of the marker stylus as I turn it. TV Paint's kind of nice in that it can tell the difference between the 2 styluses that I'm using. So if I use this one, it brings up the marker brush, whereas previously, if I was using the pen brush with a hard circle brush, it knows to switch between the 2. So, if I have 2 brushes, TV Paint's smart in that it will detect the 2 different brushes, and as you can see, it's just changing between the tool types depending on whichever brush is on top. And also your eraser, this is a little erase brush, so I can stomp, change the size, and there, now I've got a different eraser setup. And so I like, this is what I like about TV Paint, is it's very possible to make a very bare bones interface. As you can see, well, not really bare bones, because most of my interface is on the top monitor, so most of that stuff's hidden. But yeah, that's why I like TV Paint. It's I've densely customized a lot of my setups. Okay, so anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn out the lights, because as you can see, it's so much easier to see my monitors without a glare. I know suddenly I've disappeared on the camera. But I can see my monitor so much better. I can judge color so much more easily. I just like working in a dark room. And what I have are LED-based darkroom lights. So these LED-based darkroom lights, they generate a pure red. Actually, you can just get like LED-colored lights, and they give you this pure red, which is, I find it's very easy on the eyes. And give me 1 second. I gotta plug something else in. It's over here somewhere. I gotta find the plug in the dark. Oh, here it is. Or not. Oh yeah, this is. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay, here. Okay, there we go. So what I plugged in just now is the track lighting. Plug in the track lighting, which illuminates my keyboard. I can read the letters a little more readily. It's just some electroluminescent wire which has been mounted. I've really just taped. It's just been taped to the underside of this this shelf, and so it shows up there. I got 2 little bobby pins that I stuck in here, little push pins that I've stuck in there just to keep the keyboard from falling out on my my lap. So I can still access my keyboard shortcuts and whatnot. And yeah, so I like working, more or less in a relatively dark room. And and you'll also notice that my canvas is gray. I choose gray canvases as opposed to white ones because it's just easier on the eyes. All right, so as for the tools that I like to use, what kind of brushes I like to use, there is, without a doubt, my hard circle brush, which is kind of my mainstay. It's the one that I use the most. Um, and the reason I like it is just I can fill in areas really quickly. I can use it to, to illuminate objects rapidly. Then I like to use the additive color painting mode in TV Paint, and then I can quickly throw a highlight on it. So that's one thing I like about it. I also, on occasion, I will use a my airbrush, and there we are. So yeah, I also use like the circular airbrush as well. So let me just there we go. Okay, yeah. So just a circular airbrush, which makes it also very good for quickly lighting things up, and then I can shade something, and then I can pick some of that color again, and then lighten up the bottom. So it gives me really, really nice, smooth, soft shading. And then I can just toggle between my airbrush and my hard circle. So this is, macros that I've set up, which allow me to switch between my favorite tools. And there, it's like I can really easily create any kind of shape I want. What else do I use a lot? Oh my goodness, I totally use the, it's just called a freehand shape tool. So what it is it's like a lasso, except it automatically, cuts away the shape. So, if I'm using it to, to design things, I just really, really like using this little tool. So it's not showing up very well on the camera, but as you can see, there's a little red outline which shows whatever I'm drawing, and as soon as I release the stylus, it fills in that shape that I just drew, and then I can also right click and I can cut away, so I like using it for any kind of my quick design work, and then having a lock transparency function is really useful, so I can quickly just add and change colors, and it's really, really fast for character design and whatnot. So those are my main tools. I'll show you. We've got another couple minutes here, so I'll show you some of the other brushes that I use. One of these is a spatter brush, which was made by another user on TV Paint forums that I later modified, and his name escapes me, so I'm sorry. But anyway, here's how it works: is that he basically took scans of ink. He flung ink at a piece of paper, scanned it in, and then turned it into a brush, into a custom brush. And so, this is, it's like my favorite ink spatter brush in that I've modified my brush so that, if I paint lightly, it just kind of dusts like a light spray. The harder I push, then the thicker the brush stroke. And then if I really, hammer down, it really throws some good splats on. So it's good for explosions. It's good for dirt flinging. It's good for blood splatter and whatnot. It's good for making things look all grungy and whatnot. I also have this brush. This brush I like. It's my striated brush, which you've probably seen me use a lot in my hair tutorials. So this is just a, it's just a stamp that randomly shuffles. Every time I stamp, it just shuffles that stamp. And so this, coupled with the foot pedal, allows me to, make some pretty good hair effects. It's really good hair brush or bristle brush. There's also that marker wedge brush that I showed you earlier. I'm not going to bother showing you again. I also have this brush. Yeah, hang on. Here we are. This is my photo texture brush, which I've created. And what it does is I can just pick up any photo texture, and then I can just run it through this little script of mine that I created. And what it does is it dices up the brush and turns it into a ribbon. And so there, now I have this kind of a ribbon brush, and I can use it for quickly painting textures on a floor or whatnot. So if I'm really pressed for time, I can just use it to quickly apply textures to anything. So I could take, let's say, this wood brush here.